Adventurers, welcome back to the Elder Scrolls Lorecast. This is the show that covers all the different topics and all the different lore behind the Elder Scrolls. And I'm your host, Tom, or Robots, and I'm here as usual with my good buddy, Lotus of Doom. How you doing, Lotus?
I am good. Glad that we get to record after a little delay from my part. Real life got in the way the last couple of days, but I'm glad that we managed to still record this week and don't miss out on this episode because we'll get into why Miraak is cool.
Yeah, we're talking about Miraak this week and freaking real life getting in the way of all these fun topics and video game stuff. But we'll avoid that for the next hour because we're talking about one of the coolest freaking characters, I don't know, in the Elder Scrolls universe, or at least
great villain,
at least in Skyrim. But yeah, Miraak. And if you are one of the people who's brand new to Skyrim because you picked up the Legendary Edition and you hadn't played it, 10 years ago when you got it, just a warning, this is part of Skyrim. This is part of the Solstheim DLC. If you were attacked by a bunch of cultists, this is a name that you might have seen pop up. You may want to skip this episode if you don't want spoilers for the game because you're still working your way through that content.
Right. Mainly it's if you haven't completed the Dragonborn expansion, which is the final expansion to it, where you go to Solstheim, like you had mentioned. So if you don't want any of that story spoiled, he is integral to that. So maybe hold off on this one if that's something that would bother you, knowing kind of some of how the inner workings of Miraak is, and you'd like to be surprised instead.
Right, because the details are very interesting, and that's a great expansion. The story is really cool, discovering what's going on with this character. And basically,
it's one of my favorite expansions in any video game ever.
Yeah, it's really, really cool stuff. So in this episode, we're going to be getting into who Miraak is and what's really going on with his character and why he's doing what he's doing. So without further ado, let's dig in a little bit. So Miraak is the OG Dragonborn. And I was reminded of this during my recent playthrough with my mom. So if you've been listening to the Skyrim with my mom episodes, we were wrapping up the last episode, and we headed back to one of the towns, and some cultists showed up, and they were like, "There he is, the false Dragonborn." And I was like, "What?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, oh yeah, this is a thing. This is a thing." And so Miraak claims to have been the original Dragonborn, the original one, which brings up some really interesting questions here. Okay, the original Dragonborn. Well, what about the whole Queen Alessia thing, the Alessian revolt? What about all of that stuff? And if that's something that you're not familiar with, go back and listen to our episode about that. We talked about this during the first era. Miraak is from a time slightly before that, when the dragons were part of the world still, when they ruled over the mortals, when the dragon priests were involved with doing their bidding over the world. And he was supposedly the first of the Dragonborn. And
right.
And go ahead, Lotus.
The thing I just wanted to bring up, because I do like it, just that it was mentioned from Royal the Princess, allegedly, because again, this is predating a lot of stuff,
right?
But on the flip side of this, we'll get into why Miraak has so much power and has over the years from some of his affiliations to that, but knowing exactly what the past is with Miraak can get a little tricky because it dates all the way back pre-Dragon Wars and stuff like that. So
right. This goes back a long, long, long way to like the foggy edges of history here.
Right.
Now, one of your favorite people, you have kind of a love cringe relationship with Michael Kirkbride. And
yes, little bit.
Yeah, Michael Kirkbride, who is one of the key writers with a lot of the lore dating back to Morrowind and then early Oblivion and then slightly into Skyrim.
I absolutely love his stuff, or really am super flinchy with it.
right. Love cringe relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very good description of my situation with this writer.
Go back and listen to our weird and wacky episodes from over the summer, and you'll get his takes on some of these things. But he was questioned about this. What about, and I read some posts about this, and he said that Miraak predates Alessia, but Alessia had a relationship with Akatosh, and she was the first in that line. Miraak, however, was a Dragonborn in a different way than Alessia was. And he also didn't create a line of descendants the way Alessia did.
Sure.
And that he was the kind of Dragonborn that you are in Skyrim, in that you could absorb the souls of dragons, and she didn't necessarily have that same kind of power. So in his mind, there's a distinction on like what exactly that means and the use of the word Dragonborn. So he, in his writings, kind of created a distinction there and kind of kept them separate.
Yep.
So, okay. So, one thing, tomato, who knows? But the point here is that he existed a long time ago during the time of the dragons. The dragons were doing, their terrible, terrible stuff. And one day, the story goes that he came across a black book. Who knows where, under what circumstances, and I guess decided to read it. And as we know, these black books show up for whatever reason and seem to have forbidden knowledge in them. And they are planted into the world by one Daedric prince, Hermeaus Mora.
Everybody's favorite Daedric prince.
Well, Lotus
Hermeaus
of Doom's
Mora.
favorite prince, Hermes, and one of my favorite princes too.
Executive decision, everybody's.
And in that book, it shared with him knowledge about the ways and means to apprehend some great power.
Indeed.
And also, potentially in that book, or in maybe future meetings with this Hermeaus Mora, taught him a dragon shout, which allowed him to bend the will of dragons. So
that's a pretty good one.
Yeah. So the way I picture this is he finds a black book which says something along the lines of like, hey, buddy, come work with me.
I picture that's how it's written too.
Yeah, it's probably written,
bro.
Well, it's probably more like, "Hey, brother, come work with me, and I'll give
More
you
marbles in his mouth while he's talking.
Yeah, marbles in his mouth. I'll give you the power to control the dragons, and you won't have to do their bidding anymore." And then, of course, he goes and visits Hermes, and
pitch perfect.
They strike a deal, and then, of course, Hermes teaches him the shout, and then, of course, he decides that, you know what, screw you guys, I'm going to do what I want. You can't tell me what to do anymore because I'm going to tell you what to do. So, thus, he rebels against his dragon overlords, and unlike any of the other dragon priests, he now is set apart and different from the others.
Right, because he actually has the power to fight back against them, whereas prior to, fighting back against your dragon overlords was kind of like a not going to happen thing.
Right. Now, we only know him by the name of Miraak, which is also the name of the mask that he wears. Because like so many of these other dragon priests, the masks themselves have names. We don't know what his original name was. Like, was he like Hjalti Earlybeard? Like, does he have a weird, funny name, kind of like Talos might have? We don't know.
Right.
We have no sense of that. So, any thoughts on any of this stuff so far? I know Hermes Mora is one of your favorites.
Oh yeah, no, I love that's why. Well, that's part of the reason why I think it's such a cool expansion that he's involved with. It just basically, that was like a love letter to all of my favorite things in the series. It's like, you're going to Morrowind region and dealing with your favorite Daedric prince. It's like, wow, it's everything I want all at once. But Miraak himself, I do, and I wish I remembered where I actually saw it originally. So a great way to explain this series, I feel, is Elder Scrolls deals in mysteries. So even though we've got some information on Miraak, I really like the fact that his past, like as old as he is and as much information as we are given and have from doing the expansion and stuff like that, and his ties into Hermes Mora, I do like that all of what we know is still in the end cut off by, well, there's more before he became a dragon priest and stuff like that. Like, oh yeah. And that's what's obscured still. So as much as we can delve into with him and his history is like, you know, potentially the first Dragonborn and stuff like that, it's interesting to know that it's still not all uncovered. We don't have the whole biography of Miraak. And you can kind of see where we'll get into it a little later on, I assume a little more in depth, but once he's granted some power from Hermeaus Mora, he uses that to acquire more power, and to the point where, by
absorbing the souls of dragons, that becomes his main
power feed. Right. And he uses the knowledge he was given to control, you know, situations that normally he wouldn't be able to. But as a result of all of that, it ends up leading to him to almost like kind of rebelling against Hermeaus Mora, who gave him that, which is why then Hermeaus Mora no longer finds him of use, which is weird because it kind of almost shows you the difference between the tiers of power within this universe, where he can run amok and, you know, do all these impressive things, taking down dragons, fighting, you know, the battle against you or whatever. But then, you know, you still don't want to totally piss off the one who gives you power, because there's always somebody with like another level of something. And when you start dealing with Daedric princes, it gets real like
it's a whole nother tier.
It's hard to get a leg up on them. In most situations, especially when you're dealing with one who just delves in knowledge.
Right. Yeah. So let's follow the storyline a little bit more to kind of catch up with where you're going with this. So yeah, the rebellion that he basically uses or creates happens during the Dragon War, and during that time is when Hakon One Eye, Gormlaith, Golden Hilt, and Thalidor the Old, the buddies that you meet in what's the land of the Nord Dead, at the end of the storyline in Skyrim, in Sovngarde, the buddies that you meet up with, they're you know, they're ghostly forms and all that. You meet them, you know, when we did the whole recap of the storyline, those guys who fought the dragons originally basically went to Miraak and they're like, hey, listen, you've got this crazy power. You're not like the other dragon priests. Like, why don't we combine forces, and with your power we could stop the dragons? And he was like, nah, I got this. I don't need you guys. I'm going to go off on my own. And he probably should have teamed up with them, because the situation probably would have worked out better for him, because the dragons took out his temple. They razed his temple, which was on the island of Solstheim, which caused him to have to basically retreat. So he goes back to Hermes, who hides him in his Daedric realm of
Apocrypha.
Right. Man, words are so hard for me to hold on to.
That's all right. I got you on that.
Yeah. Apocrypha. Right. So, and the way that Hermes does things, of course, are, you know, unexplainable. Basically, he disappears out of time in a very similar way to the dragons. He just all of a sudden is just gone from the world for eras of the world. And that's when he reappears in the world, is when the dragons reappear in the world as well. And that's when we see him in Skyrim. It's like he lives in Apocrypha for that entire time period. Now, does time pass the same way in Apocrypha as it does in Tamriel? In Mundus?
Unlikely. Not, you know, we don't know, but seems unlikely, at least for the most part, that it has a parallel to time in the, you know, normal world of the in-game or whatever.
Right. And if it had, then he was like kept alive by Hermeaus Mora.
Sure, Mora would keep him alive for his uses or whatnot.
Right. But during that time, while he was in Apocrypha, he eventually became tired of Hermeaus Mora and realized that he had just traded one master for another.
Right, exactly.
He was basically like, okay, well, now I was serving the dragons. Now I'm just serving Hermeaus Mora. I fell into a trap, basically. I was given more power, but now I'm just serving Hermeaus Mora because I'm simply following what he wants me to do to whatever goals or ends Hermeaus Mora has.
Yep.
And so now he's pissed off Hermeaus Mora, gets kicked back into the world, and is now trying to rebel against Hermeaus Mora. And so that's when you come across him and have to deal with him.
Yes. And I will say the introduction to Miraak is one of... So I had mentioned that he's a great villain. And one of the things that I love about the way Miraak is introduced in game, so this will be kind of gamey and how the expansion kind of starts. So this is kind of where we'll delve more into a little spoilery stuff.
Sure. Yeah, we're not going to hit too much on the gameplay stuff that happens. This is more about him and his story. Right.
The reason that I feel that Miraak makes such a great villain and is introduced in such a cool way is regardless of where you are in the story, like the main game, and the way I played Skyrim was right out the gate from launch night onward. So this expansion came after I was off the rails, overpowered, like nonsense numbers. Like I'm just smashing through everything. And when you go to visit Solstheim and or you kill a dragon, which is one of the coolest things, he takes the soul that you would normally take.
Yeah.
So no matter how powerful you are, it limits potential in-game growth and immediately sets you on odds against this character, because at that point, without fighting him, you can't collect more dragon shouts because you can't learn new souls. I absolutely love that way that he was brought in like that. It was a great way to make me immediately be pissed. I was like, what? Who is this? I was like, what is this crap? Those are my dragon souls.
Right.
So I love his introduction. It was, I don't know, I thought it was a great way of I don't ever like when games strip away your power. Like, that weird parallel, but like in Metroid, you always lose all your gear and you have to get it over again. Like that's the thing.
Yep.
When I've spent hundreds and hundreds of hours building up this super awesome character where I'm joking that like nothing can stop me, and then all of a sudden they come up with this way without taking away your power to be like, fine, you just can't progress then. It's like, oh, it is on, Miraak. Like,
you're not taking my dragons.
That's one of my favorite introductions to a villain. I was like, oh, I actually really want to fight this dude right out the gate. I was like, we're not doing this. So
because he becomes like an actual rival.
Yes, he feels like a rival Dragonborn, the way he's portrayed. He basically griefs you constantly because he has the same abilities you do, except he's been around longer and can do it passively from a distance, where it's like, I'm the one fighting the dragon and you're getting the soul. This is some bull right here.
Yeah. So to answer some questions in chat, we have a question. Have we seen Miraak anywhere else besides ESO or Skyrim? Well, he doesn't show up in ESO because during that time period in the Second Era, he would
still be missing in action.
He's off the grid. He's in Apocrypha. He only shows up in Skyrim in the games. He's not mentioned anywhere else. In fact, in Skyrim is the only time he even comes up at all, because we get the stories of the dragon priests and the dragon.
He's got a non-storyline related, very cool looking Elder Scrolls Legends card.
Well, there you go.
But no story parallel. It's just he exists literally there. That's the only thing.
And then T-Rex asks, is he a self-proclaimed Dragonborn? Well, he's actually a Dragonborn because he has the abilities of a Dragonborn.
Right.
So he doesn't have to tell anyone. I mean, he admits it, but
he is, and it's to be fair, it seems very likely that he is not full of it. Like he it seems to be a weird situation when you think of Alessia and stuff like that. But the way you put it is, he's a different type of Dragonborn. You're not royalty as the Dragonborn necessarily in Skyrim. you have dragon blood, but you're not like of the Septum line or the Alessia. You know what I mean? It's a little different.
Not everyone who has dragon blood is of the royal line.
Exactly.
That's probably the way we should say it. So just because he had
really good way of
dragon blood in a time before the Alessian, empire,
yes,
doesn't mean that he was destined to be an emperor.
But and that's just it. He's kind of like, he's proclaiming he's the first Dragonborn, which could very well be the case.
He may have been. I mean, if there's no other proof of any other Dragonborn existing before him, then maybe he is, or maybe there were, but nobody knew about it.
Exactly.
So in that case, then he might as well be, because
he is,
nobody remembers it. Right. Like if a tree falls in the forest and nobody hears it, did your tree fall?
Right. And history is told by the victor. And if everybody else around him is dead, he can just be like, yeah, no, it's me, man. Nobody else knows about it. So right.
I guess it's you. So yeah, those are some good questions. So anyway, the story goes on, and of course you deal with him, and of course you have to fight him and claim that you are more powerful than he is. But of course he believes that being the first means that he's the better and that you're the last, and so you're not as good as he is. But my
claim is he's just older.
He's just an old grumpy old man whose time has come, and
shouting for me to get off his Solstheim.
Get off my Solstheim. But in his return, he has basically enchanted the people of Solstheim to do his bidding and rebuild his temple. That's kind of his whole thing.
The princess mentioned it in chat. Another thing that is really cool is when you are on the island, those like prayer rocks fragment things that are oh my god, those are very cool, because you yourself actually kind of when you're dealing with the black books, sometimes you wake up and you're just working on the things. It's like, oh god, it's like, you took control of my mind. I was like, I don't like that. So
so he becomes very powerful, and he has some shouts even when you fight him that he does. He uses against you and all of that. But tell you what, we're going to get more into his abilities, some of the things he does, and then some of the other like lesser known details that we like to pull from some of the stuff. I mean, some of the gamey stuff, some of the like game breaking stuff, and the info that may or may not have supposed to have been in there. We'll talk about some of that stuff when we get back from the middle of the show, because we got to thank our patrons. So we'll be right back.
The skies are marked with numberless sparks, each a fire, and every one a sign.
So, man, this has been a busy month, and just a reminder, as many of you guys know, we've changed up some of the things with the way the episodes are set up, and based on some of your feedback from last week, I've reissued the first episode to be part of the free episodes that are out there. So the very first episode about creation is now available again. So if you are a new listener, everything from the second episode up to like the 90th episode are on the Patreon for people. Right. So because those are older episodes, they don't match the way the show is still. Go listen to what is technically the first episode on the list that describes why I've moved those episodes to Patreon only, and it has a lot to do with the quality of the show, the way the show's changed over the years, and those kinds of things. But the very first episode where I talk about the creation story and all of that stuff is now available again for all the new listeners, so you guys can get a sense of what the early show was like. So if you like that style where it's just me talking about the lore, and you want to get a look at what's going on with the first like 90 early episodes, then that'll give you a glimpse at it. And then if you decide you want more of that content, all you have to do is sign up on Patreon. It's like $5 and you can get access to every episode that we've done with no ads, including those first 90 episodes. So if you only want those first 90 episodes for $5, that's like 6 cents per episode. It's like a super good deal. And I'll teach you how to get your money's worth on that. Just sign up for 1 month, download all the episodes, and then unsub. That's all you have to do. You'll get all 90 episodes, and then you go back to listening to the most recent episodes on whatever podcast you have. So I'm totally cool with that if that's just what you want to do in order to get those 90 episodes, in order to listen to all the old stuff. But I wanted to get you guys into the episodes with me and Lotus, because that's the way the show works now, as fast as I could, because that's just the way it works. So anyway, since I've done that,
a couple years now since I've been here.
Yeah, you've been a part of this for so long, and that's the way the show is now, that I just didn't want to get people bogged down with like 90 episodes of the way the show used to be, and then have to go through the changes if they're catching up on all the episodes. So that's the main reason why I did it. But go listen to my whole explanation if you're new for why things have changed and what's going on with that. But thank you to all of our new patrons. We've got 5 new patrons since the last episode, because you guys are signing up, and a lot of you guys, I think, are signing up to check out some of those old episodes. So thank you to Fepla and Michael Y and Cosmic Butterfly and Spencer C and Christopher C for joining the Patreon. You guys are awesome. Thanks for being here. And also big thank you to our Daedric Princes, our tier 5 patrons, Mr. Gami Boy and Noodle El Dente. And we are now up to, get this, Lotus, we're now up to 71 patrons.
Oh my lord.
I know, you guys are awesome. Thank you so much. El Tai, welcome to the chat. It says I signed up for a year. I don't know which name is yours. Everyone has different names on different things, but that's awesome. Yeah, you get a big discount if you sign up for a year. That you get a significant percentage off, so you're welcome to do that as well. And and some good at game says he's getting his Brotherhood of Steel shirt from the fall Lorecast. Shirts are going out. I know the new shirts are going out. People are getting shipment of shirts and stickers and all sorts of things. You guys are awesome. I want you guys to get as much as you can for supporting the show. So go check out all the different tiers. And even if you're just signing up at the $5 level, that's huge. It's a big support to me. Thank you so much. And I'd love for you guys to get ad-free episodes and early episodes and all that stuff. So if we're doing anything to help you get through your work day, your work week, your drive to work, or rushing to make dinner in order to get to a podcast because you pulled out the other dinner you're going to make and it was like spoiled, even though it was like 2 days before the expiration date on the food, which is super weird. Why does that happen? Then go to patreon.com.
Such specific situations people listen to this show under. It's very peculiar.
It just happens though. Yeah. Go to patreon.com/ElderScrollsLorecast. We also don't have any new ratings or reviews this week, but if you listen on Apple Podcasts and leave a 5-star rating with some words, I will read it out on a future episode of the show. And also if you listen on Spotify, which is the majority of you guys, and you go to the page where you can see all the different episodes on your mobile device, then scroll to the top and leave us a 5-star review on there. That helps get us out there to as many people as possible, and we would really appreciate it. So that's it. Let's get on with the rest of the show.
Yes, you're entirely brilliant. Conquering madness and all that. Blah, 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 blah.
All right. Lotus, anything else about Miraak that you want to throw in here before I move on to some other things?
No, we can jump into the next set because there's a few more things that I think it'll be good. I'm excited to talk about as we progress forward into some of the more esoteric bits with him.
Yeah. Okay. So, let's see. What are we going to get into here? What do we want to cover next? He has some, let's talk about his combat. Let's talk about his, the shouts that he likes to use. Being that he's a powerful dude. Right. And again, we were talking about how he's basically like a real, what was the word I used? He's a, man, words are falling out of my brain. This is the problem when you take migraine medicine because it messes with your brain. And a rival. He's a legitimate rival. So
yeah, he really is.
He uses shouts like you do, but he can use them faster. He's legitimately more powerful because they proc faster than yours do. So he can use Fire Breath, Frost Breath, Bend Will, which you can't do, Dragon Aspect, Become Ethereal, Cyclone, Whirlwind Sprint, and Unrelenting Force. That's like those are his go-to shouts when fighting him. So it says here in the thing, his shouts lack time limits, but he also doesn't seem to use them as frequently in the fight as the Greybeards would, which is weird because who fights the Greybeards?
I mean, the Greybeards are they're so old. I'm sorry. They're just... I mean, they're super powerful and stuff, but it's just peculiar to think of them as a potential adversary.
Yeah, who shows up and is like, all right, you guys are going down.
Yeah,
they teach you shouts. Like, why would you take them out?
You're just being helpful.
I know, right? They're just there to be like, oh, you're
and protecting
cool.
Parthenax.
I know. I introduced my mom to them in the playthrough this week, and she was like, "Oh, these old guys." It's like, yeah.
I mean, that's an accurate description of the Greybeards.
Old guys who live on top of the mountain. Yep.
Yeah,
that's them. Rob the Princess says, "I accidentally have fought them. They kicked ass." Yep. Well, there you go. I believe it. He can also cast spells like lightning bolts, generate wards, and use healing spells. So he's got a bunch of different stuff. He has a staff where he can summon fields of wreathing tentacles that can cause severe poison damage. So this goes into the whole Hermes Mora kind of tentacly.
Yeah, you can definitely see some of the Mora influence in his power. And repertoire of spells and skills that he's got going for him.
Yeah. So here's another thing that I think is so cool is that when you look at the character and the design, even his mask is influenced by Hermes Mora, which is interesting from a historical perspective, because I would assume that before the influence of Hermes Mora, his mask probably looked a lot more like a regular dragon priest mask.
Yeah, like if you think of Croesus or something like that. Actually, hold on, for that's conveniently on my desk. We'll do a quick visual aid. Check this out. I was going to say, for anybody on the video feed. Yeah. So this is a normal dragon priest mask.
Right. But it's like his mask has been corrupted by his time with Hermeaus Mora, in that the bottom and the top of the mask have grown like tentacles.
Yes, and it extends down. Honestly, so the best way I can try to describe this would be if you think of what's his face from Pirates of the Caribbean. Is it Davy Jones?
Yeah.
And like the tentacles go down. Well, imagine that type of thing in mask form. And you have kind of like a mix basically of what Miraak has become. Like you said, assuming that it's probably like the influence of Hermeaus Mora as it goes on, he's sort of like takes on the appearance and evolves into part of Apocrypha and some of the aesthetic of Apocrypha.
Right. And the other thing that I would assume is the influence of Hermeaus Mora are some of his resistances and his immunities. So, for example, using certain abilities on him, even shouts, don't seem to have much of an effect. So if you use Unrelenting Force, even if it's fully powered up, it only gives the briefest of little staggers. Like it barely nudges him at all. You can't use paralysis. The Wabbajack has no effect, which is interesting because it's another Daedric weapon, right?
Right.
Mehrunes Razor.
Yep.
Words. Has no effect. Again, another Daedric weapon. So it's as if he has Hermeaus Mora's protection on him.
Right. Which when you're dealing with him, you're also in Apocrypha, which would weaken anything of a Daedric prince. Like when they jump realms to each other, that's basically their pocket where they're going to be the strongest. But it's kind of like it's not going to work if you're bringing another Daedric artifact into somebody else's house and expecting it to have the same degree of power. It doesn't quite transition as well.
Right. And Rob the Princess in chat says Jürgen Windcaller could swallow shats, so Miraak could probably too. Yeah,
that's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah. And then Disintegrate, Decapitation don't work. You can't reanimate him once he's dead. And then
That'd
damage.
Be really funny. Wakey, Miraak. You fight for me.
Yeah, come fight for me, buddy. The damaging liquid pools found on the summit of Apocrypha don't hurt him.
Yeah.
So those things all don't have effects at all. And then there's definitely some quotes. Do you have any favorite quotes of his?
No, I mean, the thing that I personally just like is his sort of unrelenting needling at you, where he's just constantly.
He's a rival, right? Like he is. He's throwing down some smack.
He absolutely, and that's just it. He's got some like good ones, I was going to say, and they're all. It's kind of funny. I like how these quotes from the UESP they're segregated to what will trigger them, which is kind of interesting.
Yes. Yeah.
But one of the ones that I personally just find very funny that he can yell out is just, "I'm done being Hermeaus Mora's pawn," which is absolutely not true in any way, shape, or form. And
yeah. Oh, actually, here, I have it right here. Check this out.
I am done being Hermeaus Mora's pawn.
His voice is cool. It's like metallic.
He has a very cool voice. It sounds like he's talking through a metallic mask. But yeah, he's definitely got a really cool vibe to him. Like I really like his. Honestly, I hadn't heard his voice in a while. It's pretty cool. Like he's got a pretty ominous voice. But yeah, he's got some pretty good smack talk that he throws at you.
Yeah. How about this one?
It's too late for regrets, Dragonborn.
That's pretty good.
He's a good nemesis. He's really a good nemesis. I've always preferred him. I thought he's one of the better villains in a video game because, again, when you have the potential to be so overpowered, and don't get me wrong, for the final, when you have your final showdown with him, you can kind of beat the living crap out of him because you can be so off the rails powerful.
Sure.
But
yeah, video games, right?
Right, because video games. But the path up to him, they do a good job of not letting you just like run in and truck Miraak immediately. He definitely gives you some hiccups, which you overcome. And then, you have your final battle, which theoretically you'll win. But it is interesting just because the path up to him, you definitely kind of don't. It gives you a couple power checks, just like we had discussed, where it's like, oh, I don't like that. Like, I don't like you having the ability to have a one up on me in this direction. That's most unpleasant. So, I think he makes a good, dark link to your link while you're doing this. Yeah,
that's a kind of an interesting point. So here's what he says when he steals the soul from the dragon, so you can't take it after you kill a dragon.
This dragon's soul belongs to me.
It's the echo and stuff.
Yeah.
It's so good.
He's a jerk.
Yeah. Here's a fun taunt.
You have no idea of the true power a Dragonborn can wield.
Yeah, and the accent too, that old like Nord accent.
Well, and that's the thing. You can tell to a degree that like he has a Nordic accent to him, or it at least feels like that with the metallic overtones and stuff like that. But it's just like it's got that kind of Nord inflection to it. Yeah,
another taunt. This one's good.
Your death will not be that painless.
And then sometimes he gives you some credit, like this one.
The Greybeards taught you well.
Oh.
Yeah, that's where he's about to die, right?
Yeah. I think that's one of the ones.
I think that's like his finishing, like he's on the way out.
Yeah, like oh, no. All right.
Okay, all right. This isn't going so hot.
I'm going to own up. Yep. Or this one.
There's no escape from this place.
Good luck.
I like how he's on standby.
Yeah. So, so he's fun. Like he's such a fun, interesting character, Yeah.
And the dragon priests in general are very cool. And him being kind of like the granddaddy dragon priest Omega there they turned him into something very, very cool in a very both familiar and wholly unique environment, because we hadn't seen Apocrypha prior to this expansion. And when you're chasing him down, this was kind of the first time you really got to see what Apocrypha is like. So it was also a cool tie-in beyond just him to flesh out that Daedric realm as well.
Yeah. So a fun note about the voices. He's voiced by the voice actor Peter Jessup. and you may not know the name, but you might know some of the characters that he's played. So he's credited as being in Back 4 Blood, which came out recently, but more well known, he was in Mass Effect, and he was the voice of Sovereign in Mass Effect. Yep. Destiny 2, he's credited as Guardian, and there's only one time I know of in Destiny 2 where the Guardian actually talks rather than your little robot buddy.
Ghost.
Right. Ghost. Yeah. Let's see. He was also in he's got a lot of these like side characters in a lot of different video games. He has acted in a few TV series like Suspense. I don't know. I'm not familiar with that one. Exo Male in Destiny 2. He also played a character in that. Final Fantasy, some of the Final Fantasy games, Lego Star Wars, additional voices. but the other big one that people will recognize is that in Fallout 4, he was Paladin Dance.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm sure people are going to go, oh, what? Yeah. Yeah.
So Miraak was in the Brotherhood of Steel all along.
So, yeah, masked people who wear masks. Trying to figure out if there's any other connections between those two characters, but no, probably not. But all right. But yeah, he's been in a lot of video games. Very much a video game voice actor. He's played a lot of kind of general roles, but some very specific named ones. And feel free to look them up if you guys want to look through the whole entire list. There's a bunch, but those are the ones that most of our audience would recognize. So very cool stuff with that. Now let's get into the fun little trivia nuggets here. And we could go more into Miraak and some of the steps in the quest line, those kinds of things. But
yeah, we don't really need to detail each step in the quest.
We're not going to do that.
The fun of playing the games.
Right.
That's not really what we're here for.
Go play the games. Right. So that's the general lore of the character. And those are the kind of the meaty fun bits. This is the fun trivia stuff. I think one of the most interesting pieces here is that, the character of Miraak in the game doesn't actually have a programmed in or designed character face. So he has like the mask and like the outfit, right? But if you actually take the mask off, it will randomly generate a male Nord face and hair.
So awkward.
Right. So like, if you play the game and you took the mask off and I play the game and I take the mask off, we're both going to see different Miraaks.
Yeah.
In fact, everybody's going to see a different Miraak because it's just going to randomly create a different Nord, like male Nord number 3,427.
Right.
Right. Like we're all going to see different Miraaks, which is super weird, but I can see why they did it because it was easier than just creating one but they could have just randomly generated one or had it randomly generate the same one based on an algorithm.
Well, the only thing that I think, who knows if it's ever happened and the person might not have known, but just it would be unbelievably entertaining if when you take off Miraak's mask, it rolled randomly what you had made. So you thought it was like this super deep mirror image meaning.
Oh man.
It's just total chance.
That would be really interesting. So on top of that, the Miraaks in the game, there's actually, so every character, every item, everything in the game has different IDs. And the Miraaks in the game, and I say Miraaks, there's multiple IDs for Miraak in the game, depending on where you interact with Miraak in the game, whether you're in Apocrypha or whether you like Miraak shows up in Skyrim because he's swooping in on a dragon to steal a dragon soul or whatever. So there's actually 5 different Miraaks that show up. Yeah, with different IDs. So if you're
getting meta.
Yeah. So if you're actually the kind of person who's like modding the game or using the console to spawn a Miraak, you can choose one of those 5 and they're all different actual Miraaks, which is super weird. So that's another oddity. Let's see. There's a whole list of these if you look up on the wikis. Much of Miraak's dialogue seems to have been cut, but game data reveals the Dragonborn and Miraak converse longer before the battle at the summit of Apocrypha takes place. Yeah. Some of these lines include, "I grieve that you must meet your end this way, but necessity demands it." And you are the true Dragonborn. Like he gives in at some point and like admits it, but that was cut.
I'm assuming that was on his way out, like that previous, what is it?
The Greybeards taught you
stronger.
Well. Yeah.
Yep.
And then well fought Dragonborn, but I'm afraid this is not over. I shall return and take what is mine. What?
Yeah. Either they were intending you to fight. My assumption would be maybe they intended for you to fight him multiple times. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like full on battles, and that was maybe one of his exit lines. That's
right. Or there was planned to be another conflict after Apocrypha, like somehow he escapes back to Skyrim, and then you fight him on the island or something. Right, Solstheim. Yeah. In the official pre-release trailer and artwork, Miraak's robes are purple, but in game they appear brownish green. Do you ever notice that? They actually change color. There are mods out there that actually revert the robes back to the original trailer color. So interesting. I don't know why they made that change or why the art wasn't in line with the actual game. So weird. Miraak is the only dragon priest to be listed as a character rather than a creature. He's also the only one to be alive as opposed to all the other dragon priests in the game being undead.
Oh, weird. I didn't know that's freaky.
Yeah. Yeah, but it makes sense. Like he didn't die.
He's literally not dead until I meet him.
Right. When the Temple of Miraak, that's the name of the quest, is completed, and if at the Summit of Apocrypha, another quest, is not completed, Miraak may steal the dragon souls that the Last Dragonborn kills in Skyrim and Solstheim. So, and you talked about this. He actually swoops in on a dragon and will steal the souls, right?
Yep.
Besides Azadal, he is the only dragon priest who has a set of armor. So those are the only two that actually will drop sets of armor. Mm-hmm. Attempting to reach Miraak's skeleton while absorbing the dragon souls he stole results in a warning in the upper left corner of the screen. This person is busy. Only after his skeleton stops glowing can he be searched.
Perfect.
I'm sorry, I'm too busy glowing right now.
Help.
And as he lived during the Merithic era, Miraak is the oldest living human on Nirn at well over 4,500 years old.
Wow.
By the time he comes back into the world.
Yeah, not so smug there, Divith Fear.
Right? Yeah, nobody talks about that. Super weird. There's also a huge list of weird bugs and oddities and things if you guys want to look up those things, but we're not going to go into all of those. But Rob Princess says again, allegedly. So yeah, that's Miraak. Any last thoughts? I mean, I know you love Hermes Mora. What would you think about hanging out with Hermes for a few thousand years?
Look, I think that'd be just fine. And actually, it'd be just fine. But no, from my, I guess my Dragonborn's perspective, if you wanted to go into backgrounds on stuff, I was perfectly happy to replace Miraak as Hermeaus Mora's champion. So, I assume that after my adventures ended, that's where my character went, to just chill with Hermes until it was required that I come back for something. So,
okay,
I'm happy to take Hermeaus Mora's Miraak's place at Hermeaus Mora's right tentacle.
So here's a question. Here's a question to leave you and everyone else with. Whether time moves differently in Apocrypha or not, you're hanging out there in Hermeland.
Yeah.
Right. It's not like he's got like golf courses or TV to watch, right? Like what he does have are just shelves and shelves of books.
So many books.
And the books that we do know he has on those shelves are books of forbidden knowledge. And the knowledge in those books, we also know by looking at the other denizens of Apocrypha, drive you mad. Miraak is not the most sane individual in the world, but he's also not clearly like bonkers.
Yeah, he's sentient.
He's very driven. He has a very specific goal. It also it seems to kind of match the original goal that he had. Like he's he seems very clear, like clear-headed.
Right.
He's not like babbling in a corner and drooling out of the side of his mouth.
Yeah.
How did Hermie keep him from going mad? Like, what else was he doing all of that time? Was he not reading the books? Like,
maybe
how did he maintain his sanity?
Maybe he's playing in all that noxious ink that everything's
right.
It's everywhere. Now it is interesting because and
if he did read those books, what other knowledge did he have?
Right. And the thing is, like, in his situation, he pieced out because he had to essentially retreat with the destruction of his temple. But like a lot of times it's not like you're going to be tethered to that realm necessarily, because Hermeaus Mora, it's funny. A lot of the Daedric princes obviously have their own like agendas and stuff like that. And it's funny because with Hermeaus Mora, and it's shown whenever you get interactions with Hermeaus Mora is totally fine with you as long as you're fine with being like, you need to be providing something to Hermeaus Mora still. And then once he's done, it's like, okay, I don't care. Like super apathetic about whatever the situation is. So it's interesting that he would keep Miraak around for that long, because what exactly, it's unlike Hermeaus Mora to continue like having somebody linger around if they're of no real use in that situation.
Right.
And it seemed like he actually didn't, because he was no longer traversing out of there. So either there was more to it, to your point, like why was he still sane? What was he doing? Or normally you'd assume that he would be out, and with Hermeaus Mora's objective of collecting more forbidden knowledge, that's always kind of the goal. ESO has a couple really cool quests where you can encounter some of the Watchers that are going out to try to collect stuff and things like that. It seems peculiar that Miraak would essentially be able to just kind of sit on his hands afterwards and consolidate his power to be like, okay, I think I'm going to actually just fight against you because you're too restrictive. It's like, that is not generally the MO that you would normally get from that. So it's an interesting twist from whatever that situation. And that might lead to some of the explanation of why, why he didn't get the crazies in that situation, so to speak.
Unless Hermeaus Mora knew that he was going to rebel against him and let him out into the world for the sole purpose of being a chaotic entity in the world in order to disrupt the goals of the Last Dragonborn.
Well, that, which also leads the Last Dragonborn to Hermeaus Mora, which if you take out Miraak, you essentially have done what Hermeaus Mora. That's the problem with the Hermeaus Mora.
Like, it's a complicated link of things that eventually drives something else back to Hermeaus Mora, which may have been his goal all along.
Right. And a lot of the Daedric princes do that to varying degrees. And Hermeaus Moras tend to seem to always work out, unlike others, where it's just like, I guess when you're scrying the tides of fate, you can see a lot of what's going to happen still, which it's almost like when you're looking at that type of stuff, you essentially, that's what the Elder Scrolls themselves kind of do. And it's like, well, when you're doing that, you probably have a real good idea of how to make people do what you want, because you can see the whole timeline of how things would work out if you make them do certain things. So like you said, he might have been even more of a pawn than he ever realized the whole time to get something that seemed like it was about Miraak, but in the end had nothing to do with Miraak, was actually about you. Right.
Yeah, like Hermie was like, well, if I hold on to him for long enough, eventually he's going to rebel against me, and that's exactly what I want him to do.
And one of the connections you get is with the Skald village. He gets something very specific that he wanted from there when brain sucking that old man. Brain sucking.
Oh, man. Yeah, I think often with characters like Hermes Mora that you're just not going to outsmart him.
It seems like that would be a rough situation to work around. Yeah. I think there's a few Daedric princes who, man, it is going to be tough to outdo them.
Yeah, I have a feeling that and they probably, like, Hermes Mora probably knows enough to set him. It's like playing chess in a way, where you set yourself up in a way where whatever you corner your opponent into making two choices, and either choice leads to something positive for you.
Exactly. Worst case scenario.
It's It just comes down to you're either going to have to make this choice or this choice because you're cornered, and both things are good. Both things are going to work towards my favor. So
right. The worst case scenario is some type of stalemate where it's just like, I didn't lose anything.
Right.
Most likely you're going to give me what I want in one way or another.
Right. I either win this or I win this. Both things are good for me.
Pick.
Right. Which thing are you going to give me? That's That's really the question. You get to choose how I win. Thanks. Right. I can't make you give me things, but I can make you choose how I win. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's a rough adversary.
Right. Ugh. So there we go. That's Miraak. And I mean, his character design too is just freaking awesome.
He looks so awesome.
Yeah. So cool stuff. Lotus, you have any other things you want to share before we head out?
No, not too much. I think, just going to be recording Tales this weekend, like usual, but that's really all that I've been up to. I'm working on a YouTube video, just because people have mentioned it. It's all related to our achievement discussion that we had from Tales when you were there, actually. Cool. Yeah. I don't really do structured videos per se, so this is really going to kind of be my first thing. And oh god, like writing a script for structured videos, it turns out I am not missing my career choice in that department whatsoever, because boy, no. Like it's rougher than I expected, compared to I've been doing podcasts for so many years. It's like, how different is it? The moral of the story, very different.
It gets easier the more you do it.
I'm sure it is. This is the first one I'll be attempting. So, I'm sure it will require some fine tuning if I ever plan to do another one. But just because, the achievement thing is always like kind of the joke with me in general. I kind of wanted to, I'm making something on my thoughts compared to the system that's currently in play. We just discussed it, and I'm kind of referencing us from the show, the podcast, because again, obviously people listening to this or Tales of Tamriel, we like podcasts, but not everybody likes podcasts. So I'm trying to condense that one topic that sort of kind of relates to my niche in game for Elder Scrolls Online into a video where some people have had some great thoughts and also concerns. So I'm going to attempt to formulate some type of video around it, explaining what I think that they could do to really make that system even better with what they're doing with the next patch.
Awesome. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Well, good luck. Good luck, man.
Yeah.
And your YouTube channel is just YouTube, Lotus of Doom on YouTube. So
yep.
Go search that and drop him a follow.
Hopefully it'll be out this weekend.
Yeah. And sorry again for this episode being a day late. If you were looking for the live feed, I'm going to be editing this. We're doing this Friday night right now, but I'll be editing this tonight in order to just get it up as soon as possible. So for most of you guys, I think you probably won't even notice that it's late. For the patrons, it will feel late, but I apologize.
That was on me. Just real life.
Yeah. So send your angry letters to Lotus of Doom.
I was going to say Twitter. Send them to Twitter. It's just Lotus of Doom.
No. Send him hugs because it's fine. It's not a big deal.
Rage hugs.
Rage hugs. Send him aggressive hugs. Very aggressive hugs. Pick them up off the ground. Just lift them up. And you guys know where the rest of my stuff is. robotsradio.net. All sorts of podcasts there. Lots of different shows. I'm tossing around the idea, Lotus, of doing a new show.
Oh, boy.
You want to hear it?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. What if I did? This is going to be a big one. Lord of the Rings Lorecast.
Ooh, that is going to be a big one. Also, my mom would probably listen to that.
This is like the OG lore love. Of my life. And I've read like everything.
Yeah. So that's all right. This is going to be super weird. We probably should have done this in like an outro thing, but now now I feel like we're so on. All right. So I tangentially, I like the Lord of the Rings. And that whole Middle Earth thing. I'm not bonkers about it like a lot of other people.
Sure.
But when I grew up, I always joke that like whatever my DNA is, that made me is my dad was like a huge jock and my mom was a huge nerd. So that's why I like the two basically diametrically opposed things I do, where I'm a huge sports person, but also like nerdy stuff too. So one thing that I've actually got right off to the side. So apologies for the video version of this. And this is so on the Lord of the Rings topic. My mom is moving. So she was cleaning out her place and she found a gold leaf edition of The Hobbit that she's had from when she was like younger, that apparently my grandfather found, that fell off a truck.
What? Wow.
And it didn't take damage, but she's kept it all this time. And she's like, yeah, I know this isn't as much your thing, but it is such a cool collectible. So hold on, I'll grab it real quick just for the video people.
So I'm going to show you guys too. This is the logo that I was working on earlier for those of you in the video chat. But yeah, this has been a, please do it. I'll be the first patron, says T-Rex.
I like that.
Yeah. And I recreated the Lord of the Rings based off of a similar font to the movie, but it's not like I stole actually recreated it. So yeah, show us, what is it? Show us the picture.
All right.
So the actual book.
It's a literal gold leaf.
Wow.
Like it's actually gold leaf. It's a slipcase. It's a Hobbit thing. It's really, really cool. I've actually only opened this like 4 times.
Wow, that's cool.
It's really just neat. So
what
it's going on my
shelf
of stuff. I believe it was from the 50th anniversary or something like that, was when it was printed. I wonder if I can see the actual thing.
That would have been.
I don't want to open it too much because I don't want the of the Hobbit.
In the 80s, maybe?
I believe that would make sense. It looks copyright.
Yeah, maybe the 80s.
The copyright, I assume, is just the original written works.
Yeah, it's probably the original copyright, but it may have a second copyright for that edition. Sometimes it lists that. But anyway, this is something I've been throwing around.
To be fair, like I said, I've been a
big Lord of the Rings nerd. I've talked about this on the show before, but I just to share a little bit more about it real quick. Once I started writing papers in school, like high school and then college, every time I had any reason to write a paper at all and I could choose a topic, I would always sneak in writing something about Lord of the Rings because I was the guy in college who in my spare time read Christopher Tolkien's books about how he about the versions of the stories that he pulled information from to write the Silmarillion. I was reading that crap as my hobby, not even a hobby. It's just in my free time. What was I doing?
That's so funny.
I was such a nerd. Yeah.
I mean, that's just it. It's once I was slightly past children's books, I remember that was basically my bedtime story. I would be read The Hobbit and then The Lord of the Rings.
Yep. And both of my kids, I read The Hobbit with them when they were I don't know, 7 or 8. We read through that the first time.
Yeah, they're good books.
Yeah, man. All right. Well, that's what we got going on.
What a tangent to end.
So yeah, this might be a thing. I'm going to try and make it like real high production. It's going to be like a just me show where it'll be me just explaining the lore all the way from creation through all the Valar and like the elven lineages and like all of that stuff, because I don't think there's a podcast out there that does it. So
no, I think that might be a new success if you end up doing that one.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, there's shows that talk about that stuff, but they talk about it in like a dialogue kind of way, and not in a like systematic, like, let me take you through all the lore step by step kind of way.
The Lorecast style of shows that you do, including what we're doing right now, is just kind of a neat way of just filling things out and learning something about them without, needing to just sit there and memorize Wikipedias and all this stuff. So
learn Elvish. Yeah. Sindarin and all that. Like Tolkien wrote like something like I don't know, 8 or 9 different languages, 11 different languages or something like that. It's like crazy amount of languages. That would be hard to do. Ben, I'm not good at language. That's not my thing, but I can tie it together.
We barely pronounce English properly.
Yes, we do. We do the show in Elvish. Oh my God. All right. I'm going to go. We're going to go. We got to wrap up this show. Thank you everybody for being here. We'll see you guys later. Bye everybody.
Have a good one.
Thanks for listening to the Elder Scrolls Lorecast. If you have something you'd like to contribute to the show, please reach out to us at elderscrollslorecast@gmail.com or on Twitter @ESO Lorecast. I really appreciate you listening, and I'd love to hear from you soon.
You've been listening to a Robots Radio podcast. Smart shows for interesting people. Check out all the shows at robotsradio.net.